Ba-da-ba-ba, ba-da-ba-ba. All right. Promoter 101. 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 Promoter 101.
It's Adam Voith from Billions, and I'm on Promoter 101.
Here we go. Welcome back to Promoter 1. Oh, what was it again?
1. Dan, it's 1.
Oh, yeah, 1. Come on in, hang out. Rick Hanson's here. Luke Pierce is here. We're ready for a show.
Let's do it, Dan. Welcome to the podcast, Rick. 2 in a row.
Absolutely. Great to be here.
And how was Tedeschi Trucks this weekend?
Phenomenal show. Always.
We're going to be joined up with some other amazing guests this week. We've got on the podcast later on from ICM Partners Craig Bruck.
Also, 3 questions from the University of Montana. We actually have a student with us today, Eric Kirchgasser. It's great that we actually have a student participating in the podcast. We love that. If there are any students out there listening, because I know that we're actually required listening by a lot of the music courses, send us an email. We'll have you on the show, and I bet you can even get extra credit from your professor. And God, would that impress them if you showed up on Promoter 101, and think of all the future employers that would get to hear your voice early on. There you go.
I like that plug, Dan. Somehow you motivated people to tune in for their own benefit outside of just the wonderful, vast knowledge that we provide every week on this podcast. Excellent work.
The rumors are true. The end of the podcast is coming up fast, but we can count down to the end of the days together. And you can join us for the final podcast ever as we do it live from Nashville, Tennessee, Music City, at the keynote at the IEBA Conference.
That's right. The rumors are indeed true, and our final live podcast recording will be this year at IEBA. That's the International Entertainment Buyers Association Conference as the keynote session. It's going to be taking place October 27th through the 29th at the JW Marriott here in Nashville, Tennessee, and we're looking forward to wrapping up this journey with many of our friends in attendance. It's going to be a very special podcast. We're working really hard to ensure it's going to be our best one yet.
We've already recorded so many great interviews with some of the biggest names in the industry for the final shows leading up to the finale. And unlike so many recent finales, we plan to leave you satisfied.
And with that, we've already got a bunch of great interviews that we've already recorded, like AGI's Adam Kornfeld, the OG from House of Blues and Steel Wool Entertainment, Kevin Morrow, Tina Suka, Justin Kalua, David Kalia, Lee Zeidman, Stephen Shaw, Rich Schaefer, Christine Marshall, Sam Pearl, Rebecca Shapiro, Steve Ferguson, Lee Goforth, Dennis Arfa, Rick Mueller, and Randy Phillips. Those are just to name a few of the ones that we already have in the can.
We have been listening to all of your requests and know who you want to hear before it's all over. And we assure you we're going to do our best to get all of those great people in before we close the books on Promoter 101. We still have a job to do, and we plan to do it in style.
And with that in mind, we're going to take a moment to thank everyone that has been so supportive over this show over the past 3 years. Since we made the announcement, there's been an outpour of support. It's really been touching. It's been overwhelming to receive so many great emails, tweets, comments. It's been incredible for Dan and I.
We cannot thank you all enough for listening, supporting us, and as always, don't forget to call your mother.
Yes, indeed. We really want to thank everyone that's been so supportive of the show by name. We've had a lot of people that have allowed us to give time and effort and energy and resources to putting on this podcast. And Dan, I think we should probably name a few.
We want to thank our partners, David Britz and Jason Zink, for both being so amazingly understanding and supportive for the last 3 years while we've run off to go grab an interview or do a panel or what have you. They've both been amazing, as well as the entire Live Nation team has been just so supportive and helpful between giving us so many great interviews and great resources and giving of their time, from Bob Rue, Mark Campana, Jordan Zachary, Brian O'Connell, Kerry Davis, and Michael Rapino, as well as the Ticketmaster guys, Jared Smith, David Marcus, Jeff Carnes, all amazingly so helpful.
At the same time, AEG has been so giving as well, from Jay Marciano sitting down with us in Aspen a few years ago, to Toby Leighton Pope at ILMC, John Meglin, Elliot Lefko, Amy Morrison, a frequent guest on this podcast, just to name a few of the wonderful people.
We want to thank CAA, ICM, UTA, William Morrison, Paradigm, APA, and so many of the independent agencies for giving of their time from day one.
And we had an amazing slate of conferences conferences all over the world that have hosted us, from ILMC in London to Canadian Music Week in Toronto. Thank yous to South by Southwest, Western Arts Alliance, Billboard Live, FlyCon, IAVM, Aspen Live, IEBA, and of course, Polestar, plus the amazing universities in Berklee College of Music and the University of Arts in Philadelphia.
And in particular, the guest contributors, Jamie Loeb, Rick Farrell, Andrea Johnson, Jake Leighton-Pope, Julia Franks, Ant Taylor, Jeff White, Vince Bannon, Bill Kittle, John Topper, just to name a few.
And most importantly, all of our listeners out there, we can't thank you enough, the outpouring of support, the feedback along the way, for being here each and every episode. We have so much to be thankful for, and you are a big part of why we continue to do this podcast for 150 plus episodes at this point, heading forward to 200.
It's been amazing, and we're completely overwhelmed. So many great articles and notes and calls. Thank you all. But Luke, I think it's about time we start the show.
Let's do it.
My name is Rick Hanson. I'm the director of booking for the Historic Theater Group, and I'm on Promoter 101.
Hey, Rick, where do you listen to Promoter 101?
I listen from my office in Minneapolis.
Right. In Mini, what social networking device or app or platform do you use to find the fucking thing?
YouTube.
Well, there you go. Listening on YouTube.
But that's not the only place that we're at, Dan. We're at a bunch of other places. Isn't that right, Connor?
It sure is. You can catch us on Spreaker, Spotify, iTunes, iHeart, YouTube, and on Promoter101.net.
Yeah, you got it.
If there's something that you want to share with us, well, simply email us at steiny@promoter101.net. We're happy to respond day or night. And you guys have been sending some really great invites to your conferences and to your colleges, and we'd love to come see you all, except we have daytime jobs, so we're doing our best. We're trying to find some ways, but I think we're going to pop out one more time in the fall this year for an appearance, is the rumor. I don't think we're talking about it quite yet.
Oh, a rumor.
Well, it's confirmed, but we'll be out in the Midwest one more time before the end of the year, which I think will be it for us this year as far as our speaking schedule.
Well, excited about things to come later on in the early third quarter for Promoter 101. And between now and then, keep up with us. We're all over social media. Follow the conversation on Twitter. I'm at W. Luke Pierce, Stan's at The Jew. The show is at Promoter 101.
You can find us on Instagram at Steiny Promoter 101. Luke is W. Luke Pierce, and I'm at Dan Presents.
And on Facebook, the podcast is Promoter 101. Check it out.
Same on Tumblr, and also on the World Wide Web, promoter101.com. And you can now find us on LinkedIn, Luke.
It's where all the cool kids are, Dan. You can also find us on cassette tape. If you go to the back of Grimey's used and pre-loved music, you can find us there on some A-Track as well, too.
I kind of like the idea of like releasing a special best of on cassette. Maybe vinyl. That way Rick Farrell would listen to us.
Maybe some Laserdisc.
Ooh, Laserdisc. Love it. We could skip ahead using that fancy little laser pen they give you.
Or skip back.
Yeah.
Got Huey Lewis in the back of my head now. Very Back to the Future. Ask when you say Laserdisc.
This is Joe Atamian, and I'm on Promoter 101.
We got some birthdays to celebrate. The week of May 28th to June 3rd, 2019. Dan, who we got on Tuesday?
Well, Larry Richter, and of course, Rush Davenport from William Morris Endeavor. But his birthday is May 28th, but I think maybe it was originally the 21st, and then he had to check the 27th, and then it finally confirmed on the 28th.
That's right. We were a third hold for the birthday, and we won the challenge there. On Wednesday the 29th, wishing a happy birthday to UTA's Eddie Clemens and Kyle Circle.
Thursday, May 30th. Pro wrestling icon Jake the Snake Roberts, Rashawn Blueberg, and Jordan Berger also celebrating birthdays today. But more importantly, Jake the fucking Snake Roberts. What a big day that is, May 30th. Thursday. We'll sell you the whole seat. You'll only need the edge.
On Friday the 31st, we're wishing a happy birthday to Barbara Cooley from Franklin Theater, Richard Corby, Josh Klein, Jeff Risden, and from Madison House Presents, Don Sullivan.
June 1st, it's a Saturday. Dave Margolin, happy fucking birthday, man. Happy fucking birthday.
On Sunday, wishing a happy birthday to Brett Berman, Iris Sweetwine, Larry Mazer, and from Home Free, Rob Lundquist.
Monday, June 3rd, Chase Wetzel, Mike Mills from the Seattle Theater Group's beautiful Paramount Theater, and Ed Beeson.
Wonderful wishes to everybody this week from your friends at Promoter 101.
Not really friends anymore. It's more associates.
Your associates at Promoter 101.
It's not so clinical when you say it, Luke.
Your loose acquaintances at Promoter 101.
But, we'll still let you buy us a drink at the bar.
Your not-so-distant strangers at a conference, Promoter 101. Mostly Dan, not so much Luke at Promoter 101.
This is Mary Claire Borgelli from Live Nation, Promoter 101, best podcast in the music industry.
Kicking off episode 154 of Promoter 101, we are excited to be joined by a student who's been tuning into the podcast as part of the University of Montana's music program. Welcome to the podcast, Eric Kirchgasser.
Are you ready to play our game?
Yeah, let's do it.
What's your first question? Fire at will.
My first question is a little bit more around current events, kind of surrounding the whole Woodstock 50th Anniversary Festival. I do know there's been a lot of confusion going on with the public with the principal investor of the festival coming in and saying that it was canceled, but then the head promoter coming back and saying that it was on. And I was just kind of curious what you guys thought about the festival in general, if it was in a place where it was most likely going to fail, and if you think it's actually going to happen in the end of the day.
Look, you never know if somebody's going to come in with money at the last minute and pull the whole thing through when it comes to these things. Somebody with a checkbook who really want to make history happen for this. However, Woodstock seems to be cursed historically. They've tried it 3 times. They've had 3 big, hard days. And when I mean days, there were always 3 of them. And leading in and leading out, it was just kind of national disasters every time they tried it. So do you revisit this, or do you finally put up your hand and say, you know what? Woodstock's not meant to be. Clearly not my decision, but it does seem cursed, doesn't it?
Yeah, maybe it was only a one-time gig, and they just leave it at that.
Well, even the first time, it didn't work. Like, they knocked down the fences, millions of people showed up, or 500,000, whatever it actually was. They weren't set up to handle it correctly. And they had to bring in the National Guard to help, right? To feed these kids and to take care of it. And the highway was blocked and you needed a helicopter to get in and out. So even the first one was hard. And then second and the third one were the rain and the mud and the whole fiasco of the whole thing. I don't know. It seems like some of these massive festivals should be best left to the guys that truly know how to do these things. Because, man, it's hard. There's a lot of logistics, and it's a hospitality kind of event that you just got to nail.
Definitely changed a lot since 1969, so that would make a lot of sense. So my next question was reading this article in the Wall Street Journal, and it essentially said that about the top 1% of performers are taking out 85% of the total amount of concert revenue that is in existence at the moment. I was just kind of curious as to what you guys think, if this is like something that's sustainable, or if there's also, a little bit of room for innovation to kind of increase the size of the pie so that everyone else can get a little bit of a bigger slice.
Okay, and I haven't fact-checked your numbers at all because I didn't see these questions in advance, so I don't know that those numbers are correct. But the 80-20 rule seems to work in almost every industry across the board, right? So if you're not familiar with that rule of economics, 80% of the people live on 20% of the money, and 20% of the people live on 80% of the money. And it's a pretty good rule in almost every industry. That top 1%, they're the richest of the rich, and it really just comes to them easily. Historically, saying that those numbers are right, and I'm not saying they are, but, the biggest stars in the world get the majority of the money. There's no question about that. What percentages it is and how that works is a whole other thing. But that's never going to change. That's just pure economics. The best make the most. It's about being the better businessman. You evolve or die. And the Rolling Stones and Taylor Swift are just great business people. They've evolved, they've moved fast, they've moved quick, and they've put themselves out front. So they're making the most money doing that. You got to think on the next level. You got to do business better, quicker, bigger. You got to be bold. You got to take risks, and you got to be out there. And if you don't, you're going to be left behind sharing the scraps that are still left over. That's the world we live in now. That's just pure economics.
Gotcha. So moving on to my next question. So as an aspiring professional, someone that hopes to enter the music industry, it's really important to me to kind of get an idea of what it takes to have a balanced lifestyle. And I know you've been doing this, Dan, where you've been working in the music industry since you were 16 years old. I was just wondering how you really manage your life to an extent where you could be happy, but also be as content being as busy as a person like you is.
Well, I think there's a balance that has to happen in anyone's life. It doesn't matter if you're in the music industry or if you're a librarian or if you're a football player. You have to find a balance that works for you and your family. For me, I'm very involved with my daughter's life. I spend a lot of time at home. I don't go out when I'm not on the road very often. Weekend trips to Target and grocery shopping with the family are the things I look forward to. Spending time with my kid is a huge thing. So that's what works for me. killing it during the day, going home. If I have to pop up and check out a settlement or do a little bit of late night work to catch up on emails, it's like, all right, the kid's doing homework now. She's fed. I will, instead of, going to watch TV or read a book right now, maybe I'll pop back up and see if I can clear some emails out and catch up, get a little ahead on tomorrow, what have you. But finding that balance for me is a personal thing. Finding that balance for you has got to be that level of what you are. But you're younger. You probably don't have a family yet that you're supporting. So, that's coming out of school. Those are the first things you do. You set up your financial future, you get that job going, then, the relationship comes, and then hopefully the child comes if that's what you decide, and you build those things so you can financially be able to support a family because you've already put the building blocks in place at work. And then I assume that your wife would probably also be working. So together you have a 2-family income. And then when you guys both decide it's right, maybe there's a kid, but you have those pieces, and it's not a historically new thing. Our parents did it. Our grandparents did it. Our great grandparents did it. You figure out what works. And obviously everybody has different paths. But for me, it was always about being able to put the time in at work and be able to put the time in at home. And then everything else comes second. And the trips to see bands, you make time for it. You try to bring the family as much as possible. Reese loves going to shows, and Lodi's always a fan of seeing everybody. And there's a nice mix for me between my home life and my work life, where it's like they're very into the music too. So it's cool. Reese grew up backstage at shows, and she totally gets that vibe. So it works because I can blend them.
Well, awesome, dude. I really appreciate you answering those questions. It's really awesome to hear it from you.
Eric, thanks so much for being on Promoter 101, and good luck with the job search. I'm sure you'll do great.
All right. Thanks so much, Dan. Have a good one.
So great to have an actual student on the show. I got to meet Eric back at Polestar at an amazing roundtable event the students get to host and grill some of the industry professionals. And I got to tell you, some of the best questions I've heard all day happened before I had coffee. Scary early. They need to move that a little later in the afternoon, I think. Anyway, great to have him on 3 questions.
Hey, it's Joshua Knight from the Paradigm Agency, coming to you live on Promoter 101.
Hey, it's Monday, so that means there's a brand new Promoter 101 Badass of the Week. Dan, who is it?
This week's Badass of the Week is Rick Hanson, because he's fucking sitting here. Dude, congratulations.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
You should call your mother.
I'll call my mother later.
It's hard to argue that Rick is not sitting there with you, Dan.
It is hard to argue that.
I don't know. I just read the line. I was like, I don't know where I'm going with this. Well-deserved, Rick. If you're up in the mini area, make sure you check out any of the wonderful venues or shows that Rick's presenting at Broadway across America.
And if you get a chance, you should pick up a new hoodie that the Trust made, because, it's amazing the way that they set that font.
Dan likes to give me shit on our hoodies because they're not as artistic
good
as yours. They're good.
Well, they do keep you warm.
Always.
Yeah, so do a whole bunch of T-shirts of teams that almost won the Super Bowl and the NBA championships that have made their way to the other part of the world.
Ouch.
Hey, it's Mary Hilliard-Harrington with Red Light Management. You're listening to Promoter 101.
Promoter 101 Flashbacks.
Episode 77. Rich Best.
Now, how much of a challenge is that, like picking up from one market where you have all these relationships and moving to another where there might have been other relationships? Because you're talking about buying against Paul Tillett, and at that point, probably Rick too is, I imagine, still alive or just passed?
Just did passed.
You're talking about some serious history with those guys, standing up to walking into a market where these guys have always sold you the show, but now you're competing with guys that built the acts in this market. That had to be a whole new challenge.
Honestly, it was challenging, humbling. When you go from a market like Minneapolis, where you started your career, you developed all your relationships, you grew, you're the guy. And in Minneapolis, I was one of the guys. And when I got to LA, I wasn't one of the guys. And a lot of those relationships that I had grown, they had their LA relationships. And it took me probably 18 months from first getting to LA to really sort of have my bearings, I remember telling Murph when I got here, I was just like, man, it's not happening like I want it to.
Were you second guessing yourself a little bit on that move in the first 18 months?
The weather was pretty good, so I wasn't quite second guessing myself. Yeah, but it was humbling. So it was actually a Judas Priest show that I did at Long Beach Arena. That was my first arena show that I did in LA. Had a semi-exclusive there. It had probably a 3 or 4 year run there where it was a great alternative to playing Staples Center. The Forum at the time wasn't back online. And that venue actually kind of helped me get going. So the importance of venue relationships are very key to this day.
Hey, it's Mark David, Steve Strange, Toby Layton-Pope, Stuart Galbraith, Simeon Galperin.
I'm Ralph James,
Ted Cohen,
Julia Frank,
Jeff Goodman,
Jamie Adler, and Frank Wing,
Doug Edley,
David Klein,
Stephen Riff,
Tom Chauncey,
and we're on Promoter 101.
Promoter 101.
Promoter 101.
Promoter 101.
Hey, joining us next for our featured interview on episode 154, Promoter 101. We're excited to be joined by Craig Bruck. He's an agent at ICM Partners, looking after the careers of some incredible artists. And as a veteran of the music business, he is responsible for booking Postmodern Jukebox and Puddles Bidding Party. Let's hear him out. Welcome to the podcast, Craig.
Times Square, hanging out with Craig Bruck. ICM Partners in the house.
All right.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing very well. Cloudy, rainy, nasty day in New York, but it's good to be out and about and meeting up with you.
So let's go back to evolution. 4 of the biggest agents in the business of all times. One building. The 4 corners. How did that not continue to just kill forever? Just amazing major agency.
Evolution was a very cool moment in time. It was my early days as an agent. So getting to see Zedek and Johnny Podell, work together in the same building was quite an interesting experience. But obviously being involved and watching the groups that we had at that time was pretty amazing. And, for obviously people who don't know, we represent everyone from, was in Sync and the Backstreet Boys and Britney Spears, and then the rock side, it was the Allman Brothers and I don't remember.
Sam Kirby was killing it with a bunch of pop
and then
acts.
Sam Kirby had the super, super cool acts.
Nat Barnum was there.
Nat was there as well. That's right. And a few other, Seth Siegel and Eric Podwall and our dearly loved Sandy Schaefer, who's no longer with us. But, we had a special office. We had a lot of fun.
I like the way that you guys have spread out through the industry because CJ's at WME and now Zedek's at UTA, Sam's at WME, you're at ICM, Nat's over at CAA. I mean, you guys have all dispersed evenly amongst the industry.
We have. Maybe we should have an Evolution meetup reunion.
So you're at ICM and you've been there for a good long time now.
13 plus years.
You found this world of social media, YouTube success, and Postmodern Jukebox being a star of that, millions upon millions of views, and finding fans not through radio play, but through internet success in epic proportion. That's unheard of. And yet you guys are selling out venues all over the place.
Yeah, no, I think, the world on the agency side is finding talent, one we believe in, which is obviously very important because what we do all day long is we represent our artists. But it's, not only believe in, it's finding artists we believe have traction and can have traction. So I think, I don't know if it was 8-9 years ago, I started working with this girl, Lindsay Sterling, who was probably one of my first to take me into this outside of the music business model, and, working with an artist who had YouTube views and no one believed in and no one cared about and no one understood. I think that was a big part of it. It took people a long time to understand this world. But no, I've found success in a lot of these acts and I believe people consume music in different ways than they used to. Doesn't mean because they're not listening to the radio or Spotify or this that they shouldn't be able to go to concerts. So we've sort of found, I feel like, an audience who weren't going to concerts. And we've sort of introduced, a lot of people to concerts that weren't going back in the day.
Now, you have, throughout the course of your career, guessed right many times and early. You're a tastemaker. You see something in X that some agents can't see on their own, where you've been a constant developer of new talent and have guessed right many times.
Yeah, I think part of my world, again, for good and bad, but is finding new talent. And I think the exciting part of what we do is trying to nurture and develop talent. So I've been able to, find some early acts and believe in them early on, and some I've kept, some I haven't. But I've definitely had some big names that I've worked with early on in their careers.
Is there something that you think about when you're looking at an act, or is it just magic when you see them and you're like, you just see something linear in that act, you're like, I get that?
It's a little bit of everything. I think there's definitely, hopefully there's magic, which is few and far between to find magic in what we do. And you go out, we see tons of live gigs. How many of those shows are really that magical? I think it's few usually, and hopefully it's the team around the artist, who's the manager, who's the lawyer, who's the business manager, if there is a label, who is involved with this artist's career that hopefully I get to work with and develop it with. because it's not, obviously as an agent, I'm not doing it by myself. I do it with a team, the artist team. So no, but I think sometimes you just find something that looks magical. I mean, take you one story, seeing Lady Gaga in the East Village many years ago. She was playing Orleans. There were 7 people in the room, but there was something magical about her. I started a relationship with her and ended up working with her for a little while. But yeah, I saw some magic in her, which obviously, everyone in the world knows who she is now and believes in her. It was actually I met her, I think I can't remember if it was a day or two after she got dropped from Def Jam or a day or two before, but it was like within the week I saw her. She got dropped from her record label and no one cared about her. No one wanted to sign her. Every label pretty much passed on her after that until about a year later when she finally got re-signed to a major label.
When you're getting pitched those acts, is there a thing where it's just about being in the right circuit, knowing the right people, so people are coming to you?
I think it's a bit of everything. But yeah, I think the more people you talk to, the more, which actually can make it more confusing. But I think the more people you're connected to and talking to, it helps you discover new acts. Lady Gaga was introduced to me by, I don't think I've ever told the story, some guy I met in London who I started up a relationship with online. We were emailing back and forth about talent. He said, you should go check out this girl, Lady Gaga, who I'd never heard of before. And, some random person out of nowhere, I don't remember who it was, but, that was how I found that. But it was also showing up. I then went to the show. So, I think a big part, and I sort of tell this to our younger agents and assistants and colleagues, is show up. You never know what you're going to learn, who you're going to bump into, who at the show you're going to meet and see. Forget about who's even performing. It's just sort of who's out in the audience. And I guess being in New York, there are more industry people around. But still, you never know what person's going to tell you about an act that you might love and believe in and want to work with at some point.
So you've got a pretty well-defined roster at this point, but you're still signing acts. Scary Pockets is really kind of coming on now, but they're one of your newer acts.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm constantly looking for new acts and new talent. I think the most exciting thing we do as agents, and I guess probably all of us, is developing talent and watching them, go from playing, if it's 100 or 200 cap rooms, and trying to make those steps to get them to the next level and ideally get them, as far as you could get them.
Now, you've been at ICM for a while now, and the agency's vibe has gotten much cooler over the last handful of years. Marcia came in, and Nick came in, and you came in, and Andrea Johnson came in. Mike Hayes came back. It seemed like ICM has found this level of not only doing the casinos and the fairs and the adult contemporary, but doing the urban and doing the newer and the cooler and doing it all now and focusing on being in the festival business and being in the live rock and roll concert ballroom business and development business and an all for one music agency. And it's really kind of changed over the time you've been there and redeveloped. Is that something that you guys actively went out to be in that place where everything could be handled, that you guys were a full stop shop?
Yeah, I think here we're competing with everyone else out there. So I think the more we can bring, one to the artists we represent is very important. But I think we're also here. We want to be diversified. We want to represent talent in all genres that we believe in. But at the end of the day, I think it's about representing acts that we believe in and we know that we can deliver for. So diversity, I think, is very good. But at the end of the day, like I said, I think no matter who we represent, it's, how can we literally give them as much time and attention and be there for them to help grow their career or keep their career where it is. If that's, obviously there are some acts that, they've had moments and now we need to keep those moments.
Right, well, it's about peaks and valleys. Nobody can live on the top of the mountain for every moment.
Exactly. So yeah, our job is to keep them going and, find the right opportunities, make sure they're happy.
Now, ICM's a global agency. You guys book the world now. When you sign an act, are you thinking this is something we should be signing for the world, or are you focused on North America?
I'm 100% global. I mean, I'm always thinking international. For the most part, I think every one of my acts, and almost for my entire career, has been global. One of the first tours I think I ever booked was Aaron Carter in Europe when he was 10 years old. So I actually, from Zedek, who was, started more as an international agent, I worked my early days more probably internationally my first year or two than I did in the U.S. So I've always thought about global. I mean, sort of fun story. My first trip ever working as an agent was to Switzerland with Run DMC. So
that's cool.
It was very cool.
Were you at, was it Famous?
No. I was at, the predecessor Evolution Town was Renaissance.
Renaissance, that's right.
Which was, I don't know if it was a year and a half or 2 years. It was me, David, and Mark Katz, three of us.
Murderer's Row right there.
It was pretty wild. Yeah, it was very fun. Yeah, obviously David had Backstreet and NSYNC. I don't know if we had Britney yet. Maybe we did. And, we still represented Run DMC, and I represented the Sugar Hill Gang, who I think was my first group I'd ever signed. And, a bit of a very diverse world.
That's so cool.
Sugar Hill Gang was very fun. I had a lot of fun. I used to travel with them too a few times. I think I went to Switzerland with them as well.
How big is old school hip hop in Switzerland?
It was big. Actually around that time, they had that Jason Nevins remix, It's Like That, which was actually a number one song in Europe. I'm trying to think if that was 99 or so almost 20 years ago. They had like a resurgence there because of this remix. Blew up over there, but it didn't blow up here in the U.S.
Musically, you've come into an agency that is a top 6 family at this point. You guys do everything full service. How does that change the game for you when you're signing an act now? What does having all the other services under your roof allow you to offer?
Yeah, I think it's hugely helpful. Again, in the world we're in now, not some artists, not all, but a lot of artists want more than just go on tour and do shows. They want film and TV opportunities. They all want branding opportunities. Some want voiceover opportunities. Some want commercial opportunities. So I think we've been able to compete, and I have an agency that has all these services that can help my clients. Not every act wants that. A young rock band, hopefully all they want to do is go on the road and break based on their music, but a lot of acts care about all these other sources of income, branding and film and TV placement, song placement. So yeah, we're able to help our artists with those services, which is very helpful for them and us.
TV, film, branding, music, literature. When you sign a client, how many of them actually have the ability to step into some of those other zones?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think it's few and far between. I think, if your true passion in your true world is music and touring, it is very hard to pursue film and TV at the same time. So I think you have to make your priorities, but there are acts who, can figure out how to do both, or at least a few different things. I sort of say to a lot of my acts, just be careful what you wish for, because if you want to write a book, or you want to try to be in a TV show or a movie, that takes time and takes you away from music. So I think you have to sort of prioritize what's your number one or what's your number 2 or 3, and how you want to use your time to try to do everything.
That makes sense. So there's a new thing that we're seeing around the industry, especially at the major agencies, and that's teams. I rep this act with this person and this person. You and Matt Peters share a couple acts, right?
Yep.
What's the benefit of splitting an act with somebody else?
I think more ideas, the better. So I think the more, and then again, managers and artists, I think like to also see more people
involved. It's not like
involved.
the act's paying you twice as much.
Exactly. Well, that's true, but one day. But I think, I think an artist seeing more people involved in their career, more ideas, the better. And I think artists these days, they want to see things on many different angles. So I think having more people on a team, we get different conversations. I just had a manager up in my office with Matt. We were sitting there, just coming up with ideas. So I think, versus if it was just me, it would be my one way that I've known or I've learned or I believe in, versus having one or two other more agents come up with more ideas and ideally come up with more opportunities. So I think it's more about opportunities and also being available for the client. So I think if here I happen to be on a call and someone reaches out to me, one of my other colleagues who's on the team can jump in and answer for me if I'm not available, and vice versa.
Okay, so in the case of Matt, you guys clearly work well together because you have a couple acts together, right?
Yes.
Okay, and I think it's got to be something where there is synergy like that, right? Because too many cooks in the kitchen if you guys have differing philosophies, I would imagine.
Correct.
So it's about finding, obviously you wouldn't have taken a second act on with Matt if you didn't already feel like, all right, we know how to do this together well. We already jive.
You definitely need synergy with your colleagues to work together and make it beneficial.
Your company's set up in the territorial system, but you also book a lot of your own dates. This is kind of a hybrid, right?
Correct.
So what makes sense for you to go out and just, I need the finesse of this particular deal, or putting it into the system? How does that break out in your head?
I guess it's case by case. I think I love booking dates. I love talking to promoters and understanding what their thoughts are on a specific artist and market. So I think I try to do that as much as I can. But I also know having colleagues who are experts in their territories and their cities, and they hopefully know which markets, cities, venues, promoters are best for some of my clients. I like to enable them and work with them as well. So I have more thoughts and ideas for my clients. So again, I do a bit of a hybrid. I think I do definitely work with my territorial agents and colleagues and just try to figure out what works for each client.
So right now, how many acts are you representing?
It's probably somewhere 10 to 15.
And in any given cycle, how many of those are usually on the road?
4 to 5, maybe a little bit more than that.
So at any given point of any given day, you may have 3 or 4 artists playing a show that night.
Correct.
So at any given day, there could be 3 or 4 artists calling with an issue.
Correct.
That's got to be a challenge, right? It's just like how to fix a problem on a Sunday when a promoter's probably not answering his phone as often, at least not 70-30 split on whether a promoter's going to answer the call or not.
Correct. I mean, that's what we do. That's our job. That's what we get paid for. What someone once made a comment to me that, Craig, you don't get paid to book the shows. You get paid to cancel the shows. You get paid to deal with the problems and deal with when everything falls apart. Booking the date, getting it done. And not that it's easy, but that's the easy part of it. It's when the artist didn't show up for the show and the doors are in 20 minutes and the show is already loaded in, calling you up and telling you that and dealing with that.
I'm not going to ask you the artist, but it sounds like that's not a hypothetical. Did that happen?
That has happened. Or, I've had that happen. I've had artists demanding to get paid before they even walk in the building. This was a show, a specific one, I think, at the House of Blues, Houston or Dallas. So it was sold out, too. So the money was...
It's one of those moments where you can't say to the artist, this is the biggest promoter in the world. We do hundreds of shows with them a year. This is not a thing.
Yeah, I had that conversation.
It didn't work?
It didn't work.
It's an amazingly odd place to be because you don't want to look bad to a buyer that does that much business with you.
But luckily the buyer understood the situation, so it made it a little easier. Actually, it's a long story. There were some lawsuits and the promoter couldn't pay the artist because of... some court documents that they received that day. So it made it very difficult.
So it wasn't, there was reason for the artist to think they weren't going to get paid anyway because they already knew there was problems.
Correct. So it was just an odd situation where
Did the show play?
The show played, but the promoter was instructed not to pay the artist
by law.
And the artist said, well, we're here. We need to get paid or else we're not doing the show. The doors were open. 2,000 people were already in the venue. And, it made it and actually it was a Sunday. So it made it for a fun Sunday night to try to figure it out, which we did.
Wow. God bless the music industry.
Which we did. We figured it out.
So what's your goal in the business at this point? What are you working towards?
I think it's here. I mean, I've had a 20-year career, which is wild, but I think it's continuing to, find and nurture talent and represent to my fullest ability the clients I represent and obviously and have fun and enjoy working with the people around me. I think I early on realized try to find people that you like to work with because it will make it that much easier. I've had some difficult clients and managers over my career, and I really try hard to only work with people that I like talking to and working with.
God, that must be tough.
It's tough. It is tough.
Any advice for career longevity in the business for some of the younger guys coming up?
Yeah, I think it's back to, showing up. I think it's showing up, being respectful. I see a lot of people in the business that aren't doing the 101s of good business, saying thank you, saying please. Someone invites you to a show up. Send them a note after saying that band was great or whatever words you want to use.
Thank you for inviting me to the show.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me to the show. I mean, I think there's a lot of these simple, again, people in other cities, it's probably a little tougher, but in New York, LA, Nashville, Chicago, there's a lot of shows. And so to me, it's showing up because you learn every time you go to a show. What was good about that venue? What was bad about that venue? What could we do better? What can I learn from the experience I had? So showing up, being respectful, and not being afraid to reach out to people.
Promoter 101 with the great Craig Bruck hanging out in New York City. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it.
Craig has got great things going for him at ICL, and so thrilled to have him here on Promoter 101.
Louis Messina, and I'm on Promoter 101.
Quote of the week comes to us from Motley Crue's Nikki Sixx. If you don't deal with your demons, they will deal with you, and it's gonna hurt. Wise, wide, steep words from Nikki Sixx.
Dan, have you seen The Dirt on Netflix?
I've seen it a couple times, and now I'm listening to The Heroin Diaries by Nikki, which is super, super crazy good. I don't know if you've heard that or not or read it, but I suggest the audio tape so you can actually have his spin on it and you actually get like his accents and what have you on things that he was like, that was fucked up. Especially when Tommy Lee jumps in because they've got everybody reading their parts. So they got all the guest writers. Like it's amazing. It's a great read. I would definitely spend the money and get the audiobook. It's a great hang on an airplane. Of course, it might take you away from listening to this podcast. So never mind.
Never mind. Just buy a book and read both and listen to our podcast and read the book. It's great.
Variety of life. Maybe you could do a little each.
Multitask. It always works.
This is Rebecca Shapiro. I'm a senior VP at Shorefire Media, and I am on Promoter 101.
That'll do it. First podcast of this beautiful week, starting off the end of May into June here. Episode 154 is in the can, and we have to give a thank you to everybody who tuned into this podcast, as well as Rick Hanson, sitting again for episode 154. Rick, thanks again for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's always great to be here.
Don't start rumors. Nobody's had you. No one has had you.
And we also got a big shout out and a thank you to ICM Partners and Craig Bruck, and from the University of Montana, Eric Kirchgasser. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
So we'll be back at 5 p.m. on the Pacific Coast, 8 p.m. on the Eastern Seaboard, and that's midnight Greenwich Mean Time for you people over the fucking pond.
Thursday's going to be a great podcast. Our feature interview is going to be from AGI. That's Artist Group International. We've got Adam Kornfield on the podcast. Dan, what is he going to be talking about?
Booking some of the biggest arena rock bands in the world, from Metallica to Def Leppard to Poison. It's an amazing thing on what he has built with some of the biggest bands in the world, and he's here to tell us how it all happened. It's a really good interview.
Looking forward to it.
But until then, we're wishing you all sold out shows for the weeks to come, except Rick Hanson. We're wishing you some fucking mid to average shows.
Thanks so much. Appreciate that.
I'm wishing the Promoter 101 Badass of the Week some amazing shows, Dan. I don't know about you.
I just told you I wasn't.
Okay.
Thanks, Luke. I appreciate it.
No problem, Rick.
No, I'm just kidding. You have great shows in Minnie.
Great shows in Minneapolis.
Cheers to all you motherfuckers.
Call your mother.
Call your mother.
Jim Glancy Barry presents on Promoter 101.
Ba-da-ba-ba.